So Adam Smith is the great philosopher he called it sympathy, not empathy. And in the 18th century, it just meant fellow feeling. It meant that you sensed the connection to another person that you met, that they might have interests and feelings like yours. And that's one of my favorite cities in the world. That's Edinburgh, where the birds crap on a statue. So what this does for us right now is it pushes the problem back to us existentially. And we have to ask this question: what does it mean to be me? What does it mean to be a person at all? It's a very old philosophical question, but one that has, I think, renewed urgency right now. What makes you you in this age of technological immersion? And, of course, asking this freaks us out. I'm glad my little GIF is loading. Because we're often reduced to our shopping preferences. Right? If you go onto Amazon, the algorithm there will tell you what you last bought and what you last looked at and what you probably should buy now. It might even send you targeted ads. I get targeted ads all the time. I'm sure you do too. Is that me? Am I the sum total of my shopping preferences? Am I the sum total of my data? These are political questions now, not just philosophical ones. Can I control my data, or is it being gathered by whoever and being redeployed? I mean, if you're paranoid, even a little bit, you might want to just say, the world doesn't care about you as an individual. It cares about your data because your data are monetizable. But you, as a unique individual, is irrelevant. And I think that's where we are with these algorithms that are everywhere. So, think, and let's do Act 2. So I'm not going to lean too heavily on this notion of technology as addictive because it's been much discussed, and I think it's quite controversial. In my book, Wish I Were Here, I do talk about this because there is some interesting research on, I'm not sure it's technically addiction, but I'm not sure addiction is a term that has a precise meaning, but people who are so immersed in technology, and especially specific interfaces like Facebook or Twitter, that they can't control themselves. And their identities have been subsumed by these interfaces. So gaming is another one. Although, as a former gamer, I'm off that drug now. Just like I don't do cocaine anymore. People who are addicted to gaming or immersed in gaming really, really resent being told that they're addicted. But here's my quick story. And yeah, I'm okay. Across the street from my house, right out my bedroom window, there's a guy who plays a video game. It's a first-person shooter, for those of you who know that term. He plays it every day, every night, from like 12 midnight to 5 in the morning. Whoa. Every night. And so, I have so many questions that I can't possibly get answers to. Like, when do you sleep? Do you have another job? Is this a job? Right? I mean, there are people who actually can make money gaming. Right? One of the ways you make money gaming, for example, is, this started with World of Warcraft. You keep leveling up, and then you auction off your persona, your character, to bidders who don't have the patience or the skill to get up to that level. Which just seems like an insane microeconomy to me. I mean, who even thought of that? But somebody did. So anyway, that's my neighborhood. Maybe one day I'll have the courage to walk across. I told my fourth year students about this, and they're like, well, just get out some binoculars and find out what game he's playing. I'm like, you can't do that. That's a crime. Like, looking out your window is just like looking out your window. If you grab the binoculars, that's a crime, right? Anyway, so yeah. Is it addictive? Well, one thing I certainly know is that there are cycles of immersion and boredom. And that's that is the main argument of the book. What is it to be bored? So the traditional analysis of boredom starts with things like this, and there won't be a test later, but this is how boredom is structured on one understanding. Right? Stimulus, failure of stimulus, reaction of stimulus, feeling of emptiness, feeling of anger, moving back into another cycle. So you can see it all there, the structure of boredom. If anybody wants this, by the way, I can send you the slide, and you can I don't know, make a T-shirt or something. But the main point is this thing down here, right? What this writer calls demonic boredom, irrelevance of our gods to now. Meaning what? Meaning that we can't find meaning in the moment of boredom. That's what boredom really is, a kind of absence of meaning, because we just are at a loss with the world, with ourselves in relation to the world. And that's what I mean by the interface. So the interface could be anything. It could be your refrigerator. Right? So you open your refrigerator and it's full of food, and you look there and like a disgruntled teenager, you say, well, there's nothing to eat in this house. Mm-hmm. Why? Because you can't fix your desire upon any specific thing. And you just keep cycling and cycling and cycling. And then at the meta level, you go into this kind of existential despair, maybe low level, but still despair, because your desires don't seem to be meshing with the world. Like, why don't I want to eat whatever that is? Why don't I want to make an egg? I don't know, right? I don't know. That's part of the problem, is that I don't know. Right? So that's how boredom works in general. And the great philosophers of boredom, Schopenhauer, who famously said many great things about boredom, but my favorite one, boredom paints upon the human countenance a real face of despair. And he's right. I mean, Schopenhauer is probably the first philosopher to really take boredom seriously in the 19th century. Because before then, as I mentioned, there was this medieval language of exedia, but that was really structured by, theological notions of sin and redemption. Schopenhauer recognized that as the world became more democratized in the 19th and now in the 20th and 21st centuries, more and more people would feel this absence of meaning because they were open to too many desires. Take the Wi-Fi part of the Maslow period out. If you go back to a point where all you really care about is getting enough food and a roof over your head and clothes, you're probably not bored. You might be other things. You might be miserable in other ways. Yeah. But boredom is not the misery that you're experiencing. Right? Boredom is a luxury good of the modern age. And Schopenhauer saw that. That might be, Schopenhauer thought that might be an opportunity. Because the experience of boredom is extremely uncomfortable, yes. But like a lot of existential crises, maybe it leads to deeper reflection about yourself and the world and how they interact, what I call the interface. I don't know if this is true, but it might be. Kierkegaard, likewise, a great philosopher of boredom. And this is self-indulgent, but there was, I don't know if it's still true, there was a Twitter feed called Kim Kardashian, which featured images of Kim Kardashian with supplanted faces of Soren Kierkegaard. So, Stephanie's clothes are so next level beautiful. And so great. Well, that one at least is true. Yeah, here we go. So that's Kim Kardashian. The other great philosopher, these are the traditional sources. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the other great philosopher of boredom in the 20th century was Mark Kingwell, and who had many faults, including being a Nazi. But what Heidegger points out, again, on the question of the interface, is he's writing in an age, pre-internet, pre-screen, and there's a long discussion in one of his books about two concrete examples. One is a dinner party, and he's, it's actually hilarious. If Heidegger can be hilarious, it is hilarious, about why we find dinner parties boring. And he's trying to be really, really philosophical, metaphysical about this, right? So what's the boredom I feel right now when I'm at the dinner party with people who are apparently my friends, and there's food and wine and, conversation? Like, why am I bored? And what he decides is, this is a big insight, he decides that it's the scene that's boring. Right? The very idea of the dinner party is what's boring. And then the other example, which many people reference, is a train station waiting room. Right? So he's at a train station waiting for a train, and starts to feel this profound, irritating, almost desperate boredom, because there's nothing to do, there's no cafe, there's nobody around. Right? He's just sitting there, and you have to assume he doesn't have a book or anything else to distract him. And he says, and this is, again, an interface point, now I start getting mad at the train station. Right? I start blaming the train station for my boredom, right? Which makes no sense. The train station is just a train station. I mean, it's the place where trains come and trains go. Like, it hasn't done anything to you personally, Martin Heidegger. But that's what we start to feel about boredom. And that's my notion of the interface, that we start to see in a specific kind of reaction that we think other things are causing our boredom. And so this is what I call, and this is referenced in a little article that you might have seen on the website, neoliberal boredom, right? Where the boredom is a kind of structure where all we want to do is flee it to find some new stimulus. And of course, once we find the new stimulus, there will be another stimulus down the line when we find that one inadequate too. And so the neoliberal part is, this is what capitalism tends to focus on and monetize. Because every time you swipe or click, you're seeking some kind of stimulation that you're not feeling at that moment. And I contrast this, so-called neoliberal boredom, with philosophical boredom, which is the Schopenhauer, Kierkegaard, Heidegger kind, where you use the experience of boredom or take it as an opportunity to think about your relationship to the world and maybe to your own mortality or whatever else you think might be worth reflecting on. So